Hi, my name's Keith Cooper of Northlight Images, and this video, one of my series of ones about making prints and the likes, is what's so difficult about printing. And it's partially an outline of aspects of printing which I found have helped people when I've done training courses and things like that. But it's also a request for comments, questions in the comments about just what bits of printing do you find difficult. Because I've printed things for years, it's often quite difficult for me to know immediately, which aspects of this are in the bleeding obvious category and which ones are really quite tricky and people have difficulties with. So I've got some of the lessons that I've picked up over the years from teaching people printing. Now, I do bespoke training. I don't have facilities here at home to be able to offer training courses as such here, but I do come out and do teaching for people. Now, that's relatively specialised, and I can easily take a half day or a whole day going through things like that for people. And if you've got, and I'll be honest about it, if you've got the money for it, then yeah, I can it's bespoke and I can cover it to whatever you want. However, I always say about the photography and things like this, I have two prices: full price or free. Full price is where you're paying for me to turn up. Free is, well, this sort of stuff and all the articles I've written on it. So really, I would like to know which aspects of printing put you off, which things you have difficulty with. Now, some of the things I can break printing and acquiring the skills to make good prints into several different areas. It's about the mechanics, the editing, and about the actual images that you're looking to print. The easiest one in many ways to deal with is one that I know people have difficulties with, is the mechanics of actually producing prints, of putting papers into sheets of paper into printers and actually getting the prints to come out. Now, there's only so much of this I can cover in the videos and the articles, because I can't really do step-by-step guides. If you are someone who likes following recipes, step-by-step guides, you'll have to look elsewhere. I tend to, certainly for these videos and the likes, I concentrate on the overall process, what you're trying to do, because this computer here, for example, this is a new one that I'm setting up, and this has got the latest Mac system on it. It's connected up to these monitors. I'm showing some details of this particular print, and I'll come back to this print in a minute because there's quite a few aspects of this that are relevant to this. But that's different in terms of screen layout to the other computer that I use for a lot of work. I printed this directly from Photoshop. People may not have Photoshop. So there are so many options of the mechanics of it that I can't really go into stuff in detail. But if you have a hunt round, you will find people looking at the mechanical side aspects of making prints. What's the key bit about that I've come across? It is understanding how to make a perfect test print. And what I mean test prints, well, I've got loads of stuff on this, and you can download these from the Northlight Images site. I'll put links in the notes. There's a colour one, there's a black and white one. Now, I take the attitude that if I can, when I'm testing a new printer, and I am really grateful to Epson and Canon for lending me printers when they come out so I can test them for reviews, because it also means I can learn quite a bit as well. I get things wrong. If I get things wrong regularly with these, then I'm pretty sure other people will as well. Now, there's a colour test image, there's a black and white test image. These are the first images that I will print, apart from making profiles and things, but these are the first images I will print when I've got a new printer. Why is that? It's because these images have nothing to do with me. I've got no emotional attachment to them. I've used them for years, so I know them well. Now, albeit this particular one, the black and white one, is one I created, because there wasn't, a few years ago when I made this, there wasn't a black and white image suitable for test print, but it's been widely downloaded, tens of thousands of times, versions of this particular image. Now, I can produce perfect prints of these irrespective of how good my monitor is, because the whole point is you don't do any adjustments to the test images. They are test images purely just for printing. So if you can produce perfectly good looking test images, then you've made what I would consider a major step, because you've effectively made printing just something that you can do. Now, it's not just click a button, and certainly I don't particularly like things like Lightroom. One of the reasons I don't do, say, as a detailed training of stuff. I can cover aspects of this, and I will do if I do stuff one-to-one, you know, sort of personal, you know, direct training, because I can see what people are doing. But print this. Even if you're using an Epson printer, use the Epson print layout software or something like that. You do not need to worry about editing anything else. These images can be used to test that you can physically make prints. You can load paper. You can see how prints, you can cover the settings that are needed. So anyway, that's very much a mechanical skills-based thing. It's not a particularly tricky area. Now, but, I mean, if you've got questions about it, please do ask, because this is partly a sort of a trawl for, you know, what is it people find difficult? If it's something I can help with a video or an article, then I will do it. Now, so that's the mechanics. Let's say we've now got a printer. And this print here is printed on the Canon TC20M, which is not sold as a photo printer. It's sold as a plotter, poster printer, that sort of thing. It turns out, and this is a luster paper from Dupli, quite a nice thickish one, off a 24-inch roll. It turns out it can make, you know, quite presentable looking prints. Now, I'm sure I could get better if I had a better printer with it and used, but this is 24-inch, makes nice, big, effective looking prints. So, I've now got to the point where I can take an image and print it and get a good print from it. What's next? Well, it's the editing for printing. This is the bit where I find people are a little unsure. They have an image that they want to print. Now, if you're going to base this on the screen, one of the key bits I've found when I've been doing teaching is to try and help people realise, even if they didn't know they thought this, that they're trying to equate the screen and the print. They are two different things. Now, I've banged on about this many times over the years. The print is not the screen. If your end result is a print, then the end result is a print. It doesn't matter really, well, it does to some extent, but it doesn't matter what the screen looks like. It's what the print looks like. Now, for this, the image here on the screen of this particular print looks a little bit bright and oversaturated. That's what it looks like on a screen. However, when I print it here, I've made allowances for the fact that the paper tends to flatten the image not. Now, this particular one here, this was taken, I'm testing the Fuji 30mm tilt shift lens here on a 100 megapixel GFX 100S. This is a stitched image, so this is two images with shift stitched together and cropped to square, and I would estimate that this particular image is probably about 140, 150 megapixels at least. There is phenomenal detail in this. How have I processed it? Well, I haven't needed a great deal of sharpening. Sharpening is something, and I've covered this many times, sharpening is something you do tend to need to do to images to print them, because the print process softens things. So you're adding a bit of sharpening, knowing that it's going to be softened when you print, so there's that. So that's a matter of judgment, but that depends very much on what your camera files are like. The files I'm getting out of this, and this is a view at, this is not even 100% view of this. This section here is this little bit of ferns in the print here. You can see individual blades of grass, see detail on the fern leaves. There is that much detail. Even if I get a fairly strong loop, I'm still seeing fine detail right down to the level where as good as the printer can manage. This, by the way, when it was printed at well over 500 pixels per inch resolution. You may have heard people say, oh, well, you need to set your resolution to a certain number for Epson or Canon printers. That is pretty much a nonsense. I've established that the more detail you send. So if you've got high megapixel images and they're good images, you can send them at whatever print resolution you like. Now, I've got a print here. What else have I done for this? Well, I've also I mentioned that there's a softening process. Printing also flattens the tonal range. You cannot get the tonal range of a print here that you can from one of these screens. And this is Sharpen AI, the software that I just happen to use for sharpening, because it works particularly well on this, particularly for images like this where I've used quite a lot of shift on it with the lens. Now, excellent lens doesn't need much of this, but this is just bit of process. This is a way of doing sharpening. There are many ways of doing this. Here's another thing that I've discovered over the years, that really when you want to make a print, you're aiming for a destination. There are lots of routes potentially to get there. Now, you can say from your camera file, you could go through something like Lightroom, straight through print it. You could use Capture One, you could use DxO Photolab. There are all kinds of different ways. And this is another way why I can't really sort of say, yes, you should definitely use X or Y. Mainly because I'm going to say, since this is YouTube, that I'm not selling X or Y, so therefore I don't really mind whatever route you do. It's the final result, it's the print quality. And I know that when I've done the one-to-one training, a key bit of preparation for that is to come up with a set of images that you think are good for printing. Now, that in itself is not necessarily that easy. You need to look at prints. This is in a way the third section. So we've had the mechanical aspects of just purely working the printer. We've had the edit for print, and why editing for print is a little bit different for screen. All sorts of stuff. I say I've got lots of detail and other stuff on this, but it comes down to what image to print. And here it gets increasingly difficult, because I can't tell you what sort of images you like. You need to know yourself what sorts of images you like. You say, well, I don't know prints very well. Well, have a look at, and I've recommended loads of times, old photography books from charity shops and the likes. You can usually find them. You'll find prints in them. Look at prints in them. If you get a chance, go to an exhibition, look at those. If you're a member of a camera club, look if there are print exhibitions. Look at actual prints and get a feel for how prints are a thing themselves. A print is not the same as a screen. So many times I've said it. You are seeing light reflected off this now, albeit we're doing it for video, which is a pretty awful medium, certainly here on YouTube, for me showing anything in the way of detail on this print or showing print quality, whatever that actually means. Very difficult to show. I'd much prefer doing that online in an article where you can click and zoom in pictures. But even then, you're looking at pictures on a screen. Pictures on a screen, maybe of a print. There's no substitute for getting out there and actually having a look at some prints. You don't have to like the content, but just look at them as prints, as examples of printed images. So, I say, if you're at photo clubs and they do have print competitions, have a look at that. Just keep a suitably sceptical eye. Remember that they've been selected by professional judges, but people who judge, and it's something I don't do very often, because I've said my opinions of what's a great photo will vary from day to day. It will vary from hour to hour. Ask me 2 or 3 hours time if I've had a strong cup of coffee or something like that, and I'll have subtly different choices. Strong coffee affects your colour vision, for example. It depends on what you're looking at the picture at and all kinds of stuff like that. So, but look at prints. So my question is, and it's one that as I said, I would like people's comments on. What's so difficult about printing? What was the difficult bit about this? It was actually going out to these woods, walking around, deciding a scene that I liked, that I thought would make a good print. I've got some other ones I took at the same time, which I think will make good black and white prints. Now, despite the colour, this is at the end of October. We have a very late autumn this year. There is only the slightest changes of colour here. I can go back probably in a few weeks and this scene will have completely different coloration and leaves on the ground, and it'll look very different, particularly with the reduced leaf canopy. But I went out there and I thought that makes a good print. whether you think it's a good print or not, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm not selling this one. So it's just a picture I happen to like. And it's also part of my testing of this lens. So it actually shows some of the capabilities of the lens. That's why it's there. But you have to come up with your own reasons for doing it. So the mechanics is the easy bit. You can just get some papers, test images, produce perfect. Once you're okay with that, off you go. The editing for print, well, that's a little bit more complex, but there's lots of material about editing and things. You just have to remember that prints are a little bit different. Colour management, profiles, stuff like that you need for it. But the key bit, the tricky bit, and this is one of the bits that I do in the one-to-one training, is very much going through selections of images and saying, well, which of these would you like to print? Why do you think you'd like to print that one as opposed to another one? And never underestimate the power of cropping images to make for a better print. There's no rule anywhere that you have to use the entire frame. This is two images stitched together, very easy to do with a shift lens like this, and then I've cropped it square. It was just the view that worked, and I knew it would print okay. So there you have it. I still don't know what is difficult. For me, it's the photography. What is it for you? Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope that's of some interest, and please do subscribe to the channel as well. And see you next time.